With presidential campaign season heating up, candidates across the ideological spectrum are eager to make their voices heard. And even though entrepreneurs and small businesses are a major driver of jobs in the U.S. economy, they are rarely the focus of campaign events. So Inc. Media decided to ask the current slate of presidential candidates how they would treat small businesses if elected. For the record, Inc. Media does not endorse any presidential candidate.
It sounds like you're talking about something that this audience would really like to hear, the fact that you would reallocate resources that are just given to large corporations and you would give them to smaller and mid-sized businesses.
Absolutely. In fact, let's stop catering to these large businesses. You know, when you're large, you should be able to get enough money to do whatever you want. In fact, think about the tax cut that we just had. The tax cuts were intended for the large businesses. The large businesses now are taxed at 20%. Everybody else is taxed at 37.6%. So when we had the tax cut, we didn't help the average guy or the little guy. Who did we help? We helped the big businesses. I say we stop that. We say instead, let's take a look at what we need to do for the little guy starting out.
What are the things that get in the way of entrepreneurs the most, and how would you as president help remove some of those barriers?
Well, it starts with believing in yourself. And when you have an idea, you have to run with it. I think that what happens is very similar to what happens in a person's life. You just go through a lot of experiences in life, and you have to be able to get through it. You know, I'm running for president right now, which many of you know, and it's almost like running a company in a funny sort of way. But in business, what happens is you have so many things that go on and so many things that go wrong. I'm going to start out with number one, you have to watch the money. The most important thing in a business is to make sure that you do not drain yourself by spending money on things that are not relevant.
There's a lot of talk during this campaign season about kind of cutting agencies. Specifically for our audience, what threats should we consider for SBA, for any divisions within Department of Commerce that nurture and cultivate entrepreneurs? What would we expect from your administration?
I've set a plan to reduce non-defense federal workforce by 10%. And so you ask about the SBA, a very important mission that helps small business, but we're going to have to look at ways to do it more efficiently, to utilize technology. And in Arkansas, I did that. We reduced state employment by 14% while I was governor. That's 3,000 fewer state workers.
So to be clear, you would retain agencies like the SBA, but you wouldn't replace jobs that people left, or you would kind of...
We evaluate them. In other words, I put in a hiring freeze, but it's a flexible hiring freeze, and obviously the Border Patrol will need more resources. So we're going to make sure that happens. I mean, the SBA might have everybody there that's got a job that's justified, but there might be areas in the Department of Education, for example, that we can reduce that administrative state.
Now, I want to go to one point you talked about, which is the unfavorable climate in California for entrepreneurship. Yet, so much of the world looks to California. There have been a lot of notable entrepreneurial successes.
Right.
How have entrepreneurs been able to do it despite that, and what lessons can be learned about how to help entrepreneurship grow in places like that?
Well, people who are entrepreneurs are clever, they're creative, they're innovative, they figure out ways. However, as I said, people are leaving, and they're taking their tax dollars with them. For example, if you are a large fast food restaurant owner in California, the governor has just signed a bill to set up a commission to determine the wages of your fast food employees. Think about that. An independent third party is going to determine your wages, and the suggested minimum is $22.50. Right now, they're being paid $12.50. So you're having a body of bureaucrats determine what your wages are. This is why there's been a war on business people in California. They treat business people like villains. They treat villains like they're victims of society. It's outrageous. There was just a bill that was overturned by the courts. They found it a violation of the 14th Amendment. If you are a publicly held corporation in California, depending upon the size, you're required to have at least one female member of your board of directors. What? I kind of thought MLK was all about content of character rather than color of skin or gender. That was overturned. However, that did not stop Governor Gavin Newsom signing another bill that requires every publicly held corporation, depending upon the size, to have at least one member of the LGBTQ plus community on its board of directors. Are you nuts? Are you insane? That's what's going on in California. And as I said, it's a full-throated war. The idea is that business people can be squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and somehow they'll still remain.
One question that came up from female entrepreneurs, an area that that is trying to grow, is that there's just fewer opportunities for funding right now. 1.9% of all VC funding in 2022 went to female entrepreneurs. What efforts could be made if you were elected president to level the playing field for more diversity of access to capital?
You keep saying things like level the playing field. I think I've addressed that. I don't think it's the government's.
Actually, yeah, I just am building on what you had said.
I don't think it's the government's job to level the playing field. Look, there are more women now in college than men. There are as many women now being admitted to law school and medical school as men. They are less likely to commit crime. They live longer. Instead of suggesting that somehow we should be doing something for women, we should be talking about the fact that if you work hard, invest in yourself, you'll be just fine.
Just building on that, though, I mean, I know a lot of women who work hard and invest in themselves, but they're brilliant entrepreneurs, but they're not getting access to capital like men are. And I'm just wondering what we can do to shift that.
I don't know that I agree with that. I'd like to see your source for that assertion.
What should entrepreneurs expect? What are 2 to 3 things you would do for entrepreneurs if you're elected president?
The first thing I would do is balance our budget so that we can get our inflation and interest rate under control. That's going to be the biggest benefit that you can give any entrepreneur, which is to say we don't have to worry about the federal government making our life more difficult, right? The second thing is, as a Republican Hispanic president, I think I'm in a unique position to solve the immigration crisis forever. It's a multi-decade, multi-administration crisis. And I think we have to peg it to objective criteria like unemployment, like the need for skilled and unskilled labor in particular markets, and to the declining birth rate. I mean, we're similar to China in that China and the US have both declining birth rates. The difference is everybody wants to come here, nobody wants to necessarily go there. So I think that's a benefit that should be a generational benefit for the country, immigration, and for our ability to staff and grow our companies. And I think the third thing is I'm gonna be a president that focuses on innovation and the economy of the future. And helps create the conditions for us to thrive in that. I've done that in the city of Miami, and I want to do that nationally.